Welcome back to another episode of TVGP's Critical Misses, show where we're catching up on all the media hits we missed on another music. I was going to call it a musical season. That's a different season. A music season. I'm your host, Buster, and
Uh-huh.
joining me as always is Moonpeer.
Howdy.
We're here for our third album for Poets of the Fall, Twilight Theater. Twilight Theater.
Yep.
The 2012 album? Question mark? I have that written
Hold
down.
on.
2010. Apologies.
2010.
2010. 2010. So just a couple years after the second album we listened to, we are skipping an album here, correct?
Yes, we are skipping Revolution Roulette, which is fine. It's just not one of my favorite albums.
Sure.
And there was because we want to limit this season to, like the Nine Inch Nails season, we don't want to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Some hard decisions have been made. In
Yes.
particular, cutting Revolution Roulette, and then it was the question I was literally asking myself was, do we do Twilight and Temple and cut Jealous Gods and cut Jealous Gods, or do we do Temple and Jealous and cut Twilight Theater?
Right.
Because two of these three albums need to be covered, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure which of the three. So, by all means, if you're listening, if you're enjoying the content so far, feel free, listen to all the albums.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to stop you from doing that.
And I'm sure there's going to be some artist at some point that we are going to listen to all of the albums for. Maybe they got...
because they've done like three.
Yeah. Or it's like they did 7 albums and all of them are necessary or important or whatever. That is... Neither one of these seasons are one of those. So please, like Moon said, fill in the blanks for yourself if you're enjoying the output of Poets of the Fall so far.
And I will say there will be some homework assignments after this one.
Gotcha. All right, so we're gonna be listening to Twilight Theater. What are your I guess listening notes here? Maybe going into this one.
Oof. This is one of those ones where I like. This is why I was so torn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Revolution doesn't make the cut regardless, but I seem to remember preferring Twilight after Resolution. Like, Revolution Roulette is fine,
Mm-hmm.
but I seem to remember feeling a lot stronger about Twilight after Revolution
Oh,
being
okay.
an altogether better album than that.
Gotcha.
And then honestly, they kind of did it again with Temple of Fall, where it's like, okay, this is a step up and a step back up again. Like, I do feel like Revolution Roulette is the weak point in it.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know, because we've gone from good album to another good album and skipped the questionable, the dark third chapter of the trilogy.
The one we don't talk about anymore.
Yeah, because we're skipping that. I'm actually not sure how this is going to go. Like, does it? I think it's better than Revolution, but does it compare to Carnival? Like, that becomes the question at hand.
Right. Is it still good if you don't have kind of the dip in the road afterwards, after the second album?
Uh-huh.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm really curious about this one because I think I feel like I knew you kind of knew what to expect going into the second album of like, all right, they're probably gonna be solidifying their sound a little bit. You're gonna be feeling some stuff out here, probably better production quality, and a lot of that shook loose. But now that they're gonna be 4 albums in, and seemingly still very popular and doing really well,
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of waiting for the album where they get real weird. Like, they just start getting a little experimental and like they're a little bored of their sound and they've been on the road for X number of years and they're ready to try something new. I'm wondering if Twilight Theater is that album here, if it's just going to be like, we're going to put more money into it and we got better instruments.
I think Temple is a little bit of that. Jealous Gods is definitely that. Let's try and experiment and see different directions kind of thing.
Okay.
I am not a fan of Clearview, and Ultraviolet is fine. But maybe Revolution was that too, because there's a lot of different sounding songs on that one, to be honest, as well.
Okay.
So I don't know. Listen to that one if you want. We ain't gonna cover it here.
That's right. We only have so many. If you want us to cover like way more of this stuff and turn this into like a weekly show, patreon.com/E1M1. Please go.
The ones and numbers.
That's right. Please go sign up for a patron there and like pay all of our bills, and we'll put out one of these a day. I don't know if you put enough money in there. Like, it's not a slot machine. You put more money in there, you get more content out. Like it's a direct 1-to-1.
Yeah, get your very rich friend, Mr. S. Spotify, to, sign a contract for us.
That's right. Mr. Samuel Spotify.
Yes.
That's right.
Dude, that's the soundtrack. I literally was listening to that like 2 days ago, by the way.
Yeah.
But no. Yeah, I figured this would be the album to jump to. And also, honestly, I kind of wanted to cover this because this is one of the albums that has a Remedy song in it.
Okay. Yeah, it's important we cover at least one of those in this season. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
we already did with Late Goodbye.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. But I feel like that's not the one that is going to be as popular as.
No, if you've played a specific Remedy game, you will know this song, or you should know this song, and it's not Control. It's not
that's later. Yeah. Do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to talk about when it comes up in the second half?
Screw it. We can cover it now. We'll just re-say the same thing again in the second half. It's War from Alan Wake. This is when Poets of the Fall went really deep down the let's just have two bands kind of thing.
Right.
And War is the song that plays on the radio in Alan Wake when you get into a particularly hard combat sequence. I still remember, I was like, wait, I know that song because I knew the song before I played the game,
right.
Of course.
Like, wait a tick.
Yeah.
No.
But no, that was fun. It's fun. And like from here on, I think Control is on an album as well. Or Take Control, I think, is on an album, but I can't remember if that's a Old Gods of Asgard or Poets of the Fall song.
I like that they're just like, well, it's not enough work putting out one album every year. Let's start another band. Let's do that.
Yeah. And part of the homework is an amazing song and music video that they did that is from the remake of Death Rally, which I didn't know Remedy made a remake of Death Rally.
I forgot about that. I liked that. I liked that game. That was a good one. Oh, man. All right. Any final thoughts here before we go into Twilight Theater?
I hate you so much. No, they took a break, I think, from the Carnival Clown Circus theme in Revolution.
Okay.
And I think they went back to it with this, which I'm kind of fine with because I like that weird, creepy, dark aesthetic.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they this does have a bunch of music videos too. One of them is War, and it is worth saying that in the music video for War, they 100% got Ika Vili, who is the face model for Alan Wake, to be in the music video.
Great. I love it.
Dressed as Alan Wake. I'm just going to say he's got the sweater and the coat over it and everything.
I love it. 2 thumbs up.
So maybe give them a shot too.
Yeah. Yeah, go check all those out. All right, well, on that note, let's go listen to the album.
Yep.
We are back. We've returned from our listening chambers, aka my Plex server.
The Noise, as it's formerly known.
That's right. So we're here talking about our thoughts of Twilight Theater. Hold on, let me pull up my notes here. Try and take notes on every track, every musical selection. album starts here with Dreaming Wide Awake. I appreciate that this album immediately sounds way different.
Yep.
I don't.
In good and bad ways, I think, because there's a couple of songs
Yeah,
later on that I've got some. I never really thought about notes until doing Nine Inch Nails with you and learning more musical terms, because despite the fact that we do a show with a musician, I don't learn musical stuff from him.
right, right.
Whereas you are much
Um,
more analytical about this kind of stuff than I ever have been. I'm like,
right.
yeah, I like that song. Hit the thumbs up button.
That's right. Makes the brain happy. Yay. Um,
Mhm.
uh, I I kind of dig this one. I feel like this is a really solid track one for them. Like, here's a
Yep.
brand new album. We're gonna lead really strong. I think an artist I really like, Japanese Breakfast. Someone interviewed her a couple months ago and was like, "Your first track seems to be your strongest. Like, why is that something you specifically pick? Like, is that something you really go for?" And she's like, "Yeah, I want my best stuff at the front so that you can listen to the best stuff right away. So there you go. My best track is track one." It's like, all right, cool.
Mhm.
I like that.
It's back to high fidelity here, but it's the
Right.
point that he makes about making a mixtape. You've got
Yep.
to start strong,
Yep.
then go stronger, but not so strong that you overwrite the strength of the first song. Then you got to
Exactly.
take it down a touch. Track 3 should take it down a
That's
touch.
right. There's
I
a
don't
flow
know
to it.
how that movie has stuck in my head as long as it has,
It's a
considering I've
very
seen
good
it like
movie.
twice.
It's a very good movie, and John Cusack is real good in that.
So is Jack Black.
Yes, so is Jack Black. Our introduction to Jack Black's good singing voice, where everyone's like, "This is gonna be great."
Uh-huh.
Wait, what? Um,
Yep, and also the fact that he can do serious as well as comedy.
right, right. I like this track. I gave this track a 3 out of 5. I think it has a really strong intro to it,
Uh-huh.
and I think as an introduction to the album, I like that the production and the mixing sounds bigger. Like I think if there's a word that I would probably pick for this album, it feels more theatrical. Not like in an overblown way, but just kind of like they're getting bigger. Like their sound
Yes.
is getting bigger. And
Mhm.
I
I
think
actually have specific notes on that front for other songs where it's like, oh yeah, this is where they introduce X or this is where they introduce
yep,
Y.
yep, ditto. So I think this is like a real solid intro to this album, and some albums have a side one track one that's like, here's our mission statement, bam, here we go. This doesn't feel
Mhm.
100% like that, but it's sort of like, here's what you're gonna get on this album, and we're gonna start pretty strong.
Yeah. I also noticed a theme throughout this album. Any song that I really like, they have very strong choruses throughout this entire album. Like
Yes,
the choruses again and again and again are really solid choruses.
yeah.
It's like, oh, hold on a minute. Like, how many times did I mention the chorus here? Because I started to notice about halfway through. I was like, wait,
Yep.
hold on.
Yeah, I feel like this album, I feel like they continue to kind of get it, and they continue to kind of play to their strengths. And I think if there's one thing that they do really well is they know how to write a good couple of lines and turn it into, here's this kind of bombastic chorus using this really solid couple of lines. So
Mhm.
I agree. Any more thoughts about Dreaming Wide Awake from your end?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. Like my notes are, it's a really strong opener, and I particularly love the chorus,
Mm-hmm.
which it will be repeated.
Right. Track 2 here is War. I wrote strings. The
Uh huh. Here come the violin/cellos is my first note. I was like, wait, hold
Yep.
on.
Yeah, this
Maybe that's why I like this song so much, because I like for those of you who don't know me, like I am a sucker for like metal music mixed with classical music. So like in
mm-hmm.
my opinion, the greatest Metallica album is S&M,
Yep.
because number one, it's a great name, but also number two, it mixes metal with orchestra. Muse are a fantastic example of doing that pretty much throughout until they get an all techno-y and they start doing like synthesizer stuff.
Yep.
Like they did it a lot of their early career. The Scorpions, they have Hurricane 2000, I think, is the album, and that is the album
Right.
that they recorded with the Berlin Philharmonica,
I
and it's
forgot
the
about that.
best Scorpions album.
Yep. I am also a sucker for that usually, and I think I am a real sucker for it in this album overall, and we'll talk about it. Almost all songs from here on out kind of include strings. But they have managed to kind of figure out the best way to meld their guitar work from the first couple of albums with string, like a string section,
Mhm.
really, really well. It feels very natural, and I think this song. I gave the song a 3 out of 5. I could probably it's like a 2.5 because it's fine overall, but I think this is your first indication on this album of like we're gonna bring in even better production here. We're gonna spend a little bit more money. We're gonna bring in these strings, and it's not just gonna be I'm singing a sad song. Here's the sad violin. It
Mhm.
feels kind of
It's
incorporated
powerful
into
strings, like
yeah, and it feels
really well
incorporated
done.
into what they're already doing, which I think is really smart.
This is also the Alan Wake song, by the way. Um,
Oh, okay.
this is this is the song from Alan Wake that plays on the radio, like diegetically, while you are in the middle. You jump into a warehouse, I believe it is. You
Mm-hmm.
knock the radio gets knocked, it gets turned on, then this starts playing, and then it's a big combat scene set to this piece of music.
Wow. Okay.
Um, which I I really like this song. This is one of my favorites on the album. Shockingly enough, I did not give any song on this album 5 out of 5. Um,
Okay. Did I? It
I
doesn't look like it.
think I think if I was going to, this would be the one for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that somehow like it's pretentious as hell, I feel like, but when you have a heavy, full-throated song and then you take that beat in the middle and you slow it way down,
Mm-hmm.
generally I hate that. There's a song
Right.
later in this album that I hate
Mm.
that they do that in, but I think this one works well because in that beat where they slow it down, they bring the strings right back to the front of the mix.
Sure. They like kind of rebalance it a little bit.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I really like that side of it, and this is probably my favorite song on the album, if I'm honest.
Okay. Nice. Next track here is Change. Um, I give this a 3 out of 5. I think this song is incredibly positive, which
Hmm.
for me is not the thing that I gravitate to naturally in most music. I'm
Yeah,
not
I think
like
we talked about it previously. We're both like that hardcore emo kid generation.
yeah, and I'm
Um,
like to bring back high fidelity. I'm not like sad B word music sort of guy where I just really like "Bleh, feelings, bleh," like I'm not looking for that, but um, I tend to the more serious or biting rather than the kind of overtly positive. Um, and I think this song doesn't click with me because of the positive lyrics, but I think I gave it a 3 out of 5 because I think they managed to toe a really delicate line of writing a song that's really positive, but managing to not make it sound cheesy. Because I think that's the thing when like you take just that one little more step and it turns like into the saccharine kind of like power pop song that's all about like the power of positive thinking. It's like a JRPG. We beat them with the power of friendship, and it's just like, all right, 1 out of 5.
mhm.
Like that's get out of here.
Yeah,
I think they managed to stay away from that.
yeah. So I used to hate this song. This used to be one of my least favorite songs on the album, but I
Hmm.
actually like it a lot more now than I ever used to. And I think that, like you said, I think it is a positive song, but I think possibly one of the things that you might be saying in a slightly different way that I think about this is it's not a happy song. It's a
Right.
hopeful song. It's
That's a
a
good point. Yeah.
things are rough at the moment, but there is hope in the future. It's not like
Yeah.
a sparkles and rainbows kind of thing. It's just like, no, like we'll cross our fingers and hope that there's positive things on the horizon.
Right.
And
That's a good point.
it spoke to me a lot more than it previously used to.
Yeah. Next track here, 15-Minute Flame. This gets my highest rating of the album, 4 out of 5. Strings in the intro, incredibly good. Again, super sucker for this stuff. I'm like an easy mark where it's like, string. Hey, all right.
And they really bring the piano out in this one as well. This is where they really lean into the piano usage as well.
Yep. I think this one's a tricky one because there's nothing specific in here other than the strings. Nothing specific for me to say, I really liked this. I really liked X, Y, or Z. It's just kind of a solid track overall. Like, nothing... It's one of those ones where it feels like the lyrics and the instrumentation and the production and everything just kind of came together and just... everything made all of the additional parts better. It's a really good... You make a good chili and you come back the next day and you're like, oh, it's somehow even better. That's it. This is the 2-day chili of this album.
See, I was going to say, if you go all the way back to season 1 of Critical Misses, we talk about how being a popcorn movie is not a bad thing.
Sure.
And season 1 is like 6 movies of popcorn movies.
Right.
We can
Right.
say. I think that this is a popcorn song. Like,
yeah.
The lyrics are fine, but they don't huge stand out. The chorus is good, but it doesn't huge stand out. But when you mix everything all together, it is a pretty solid song. And I like the fact that they didn't actually say fame. They said flame instead. They avoided the cliche a little bit with that, which I quite like about that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's just it's kind of just a good song overall. Next track is Given and Denied. I give this one a 3 out of 5. This is, for me, this is like a Post of the Fall song. This is just kind of a standard, again, not good or bad, just kind of a standard, regular Post of the Fall song where it's like, if you wanted to give someone, here's what Post of the Fall sounds like. Here you go. It's Given and Denied. You know, it's just a solid kind of standard song from them.
This one kind of stood out a little bit for me because it's actually a melancholy song. Like, this and the next song are both sad songs, which we don't like. We've done what? This is album 3.
Correct.
We've done 2 albums and basically had 0 sad or melancholy or depressing kind of songs.
Yeah, I feel like every album has one that has kind of like trending towards that, but never goes all the way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, this song, like I was shocked and I was like, oh crap, this is an actually kind of sad song that they've made here.
Right.
Like, I wasn't expecting that, and I do like the fact that for once they give their guitarist a little solo moment in the middle of the song too.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, gets a little bit of the limelight, which is nice. The guitar work in these songs are always really great, and we never get like a standard rock guitar solo, which is fine and probably a positive. But it's nice to see that
it's because there is no like ego, the level of Slash involved here.
Well, I'm not sure you could ever compete with that level of ego, but
that is true.
Thankfully. All right, what's our next song? Rewind here is our next song. Now we're kind of in the latter half of this album. This one is somewhere between. Oh, go ahead.
Hold on.
You can go first. Go
you look like you're hesitating here a little bit because you might not want to say what I think you want to say. I hate this song.
Okay. It's not my least favorite on the album, but it certainly isn't my favorite.
I really don't like this song.
Okay, what's not clicking with you?
I think it's probably because it's a little too similar to Given and Denied. It's another melancholy song right after, it feels like it has the same themes, which is the whole getting old, give me back my time kind of stuff.
Yep,
Um, and it's like, okay, and this is slower and it feels more dragged out than Given and Denied.
that's a good point. Yeah.
Look, the chorus in Given and Denied is great. I
Hmm.
hate this song. Like,
I think one of my biggest criticisms is I really appreciate that he's trying to stretch his vocals and really push himself, and he's trying to hit higher notes in the chorus. And I think he does a good job. Like, it technically, it's not. He's not like his voice isn't cracking or anything. He's not pushing his voice too much. I just don't think it needs to be on the album. Like it's fine, but now that you mention that it sounds too much like Given and Denied, I think if there's been one sin of Poets of the Fall since we started listening to them for the show, is there's always that song where you're like, that was pretty good, and here's another one. It's like, yeah, but there needs to, you didn't have to do it again. Like you already did it once and that was pretty good. So sorry, Rewind, you're not that
I'm
great.
just having a quick Google here because I want to know what year one particular song of theirs came out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it came out between this album and the next album, and if it was, it's another one of those Remedy songs, which I will talk about this specific song,
Sure.
probably in the start of the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
But I think potentially 2011, and this is what, 2010
Yeah, so it's
for
just right
Temple.
after this. Yeah.
Yeah, my guess is because the next album is a B-sides album kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So my guess is B-sides and greatest hits, whatever. My guess is that this song was probably already in the works. I think you take this song completely out and you stick Can You Hear Me in here, and it's a much better album. I don't like Rewind, and Can You Hear Me is one of my favorite songs by them,
Oh,
which
okay.
there is a story to that one.
Mm,
But I'll talk about Alchemy at the start of the next episode because that's the middle chapter of the two albums.
gotcha. And I think, like we talked about with the last album, sometimes less is more. Like, you cut this track out, maybe even completely, and leave this at, what, a 10, 9 tracks overall, maybe? You still have a pretty solid album. You don't need to,
Yep.
you don't need to put all those on there.
What was your number on this one?
Just like a 2 or a 3, maybe 2.5. I don't know. It's fine. Appreciate that he's pushing it a little bit more, but it's not really doing it for me. And I think now that you mentioned how close it is to the previous track, maybe that's why I'm sort of like, I don't know. Next track here, Dying to Live. I really like that this has a way different intro than a lot of the other stuff. I appreciate that they're trying something different here, and I think it works pretty well, actually.
Yeah, this is another song that I thought was okay in the past, and I actually like it a lot more now, listening to it in the future.
Right. 2022, the future. Yeah, this is another 3 out of 5 for me. Like, this whole album is like a 3 out of 5 to me. Like, it's really solid overall. I didn't really write any notes beyond the intro because I think it's just another solid track from them. If I was being a little bit unkind, I'd say it's workmanlike, but I think that's unfair to them and their kind of craftsmanship. But it's just a solid track.
Yeah, I also like the chorus a lot in Dying to Live. I was shocked by how much I remembered of that chorus. Like, without looking at lyrics, I could just, off the top of my head, it was there in my head, ready to go.
Right. Next track is You're Still Here.
Is this the song you hate?
Yeah.
Is this the song?
Yeah, man. The thing that I was thinking.
Hold on. What
Go
was
ahead.
your number?
2 out of 5.
Ooh, I went as low as 1 on this one because I despise this song too.
I think the biggest sin for this is he's trying to do something different vocally, and honestly, it just sounds like a minstrel song. Like there's just something about it that just like he has this little lute and he's like plucking it and singing this little
Toss a
jaunty.
coin to your poet.
Yeah, like it's very much like I just lyrically it's fine. It's another like looking back on my life thing that this
Mhm.
album is kind of riddled with. Um
It's also like super acoustic. Like there isn't a whole lot of anything in the background. Like
right.
very little strings, almost no piano that I could hear. It's basically just an acoustic guitar. Like
Mhm.
to the point where you can hear the finger slides. Like that's how
Right.
little there is going on in it. It's just like, come on.
And I like a lot of that like um I just think I appreciate that they're trying something a little bit different in this one, and I think most of it just didn't really work.
Uh-huh.
What were your feelings here?
My notes are literally, it's a cool song, but I'm totally not in the right headspace for it, and I don't come to Poets of the Fall for this kind of song.
Yeah,
I don't.
that's fair. Yeah. Next track here is Smoke and Mirrors.
Can I go
Um,
first? Can I go first?
sure, go ahead.
Okay, number one, you mentioned earlier that one of the songs opened in a completely different way, and I felt that about this song. Like this song has got
Right.
a really unique opening. It's got a lot of reverb going on.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely hate this song because of the mix.
Okay. What's wrong with the mix on this one?
I could barely understand what he's saying because it
Oh,
just
sure.
gets overwritten by everything else going on. Now, maybe I've never noticed this in the past because I've never actually sat back and critically looked at this kind of stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
trust me, there's a lot of artists I listen to that if I stand back and critically listen to them, there's a problem all the way around. Um, but it just this time, I don't know if it's the headphones I was listening to it on. I don't know if it was the methodology I was listening to it, but it was one of those things where it's like I literally can't understand what you're saying because it's being overridden by everything else going on. Like the
Mm.
song, the music sounds cool, but when I literally can only decode like 4 words that you've said so far, like it feels like I'm struggling to try and force myself to hear what he's saying
Mm-hmm.
instead of absorb the song as a whole.
Right. Um, I give this one a 3 out of 5 because I think this is maybe my favorite or second favorite example of them uh, working the guitars and the strings together. Like
Oh yeah,
it
that's what I mean. Like
feels
that stuff I adore. All of that stuff is
very good.
great.
Yep. Um, and I'm just a real sucker for that. But it's also kind of funny because um, on my Plex server where I was listening to this album, they kind of recommend sonically similar albums and artists. And
Okay.
Poets of the Fall was Plex is like, oh, this is sonically similar to Matthew Good, who is a Canadian alternative artist that I really really like, and it's kind of funny because Poets of the Fall, or sorry, Matthew Good is kind of like Poets of the Fall if they had like really biting kind of angrier lyrics. And for
Hmm.
this song, there's a track on one of Matthew Good's albums called House of Smoke and Mirrors. And as soon as this came up, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a great track. This one's good too, but oh man, that other one. So Matthew Good is very good. That might be a good one for us to check out in a future music season. Um,
Literally had never heard of him until you said his name. So
Next season of music, we'll do Matthew Good. Um, but this song is solid. I agree. It does have a bit of a mixing problem, which is interesting because that's typically not a problem this band has. So it's a
no,
little
like
weird for
that's
it to
what's
happen.
shocking.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like you literally everything else in this entire album seems to be balanced perfectly.
Yeah.
The right everything. Is it like, did they put the reverb button on at the start of the song and then forget to turn it off? Is that what the
That's right.
problem
Oh,
was?
sorry, boss. I made a big mistake on that one. I'm sorry. We're out of time. Bye.
Uh,
Yeah. And last track here on the album, "Heal My Wounds." Um, I gave this a 2 out of 5. Um, I think, I, I think the thing that I'm finding in this season specifically is I'm exceptionally picky about final tracks on albums, and
uh-huh. They need no. In your defense, they need better decision making sometimes.
this one feels like it's too safe. Like, especially on this album where you have like cracked the code for your band to have strings in your album, get the whole orchestra out for this one. Like, get something big. Like, end with a big orchestral swell. Like, end with the big thing. And it just kind of happened. And
Uh-huh.
I think that's a real bummer to just be like, here's this pretty solid album throughout, and then bleh.
I actually also feel like that this song has got one of the biggest sins that both cinema and music can make, which is it's the final song on the album, and the end of the song itself is flat.
Yeah,
Like it just fizzles. There is no pop, there is no sudden stop. It just fizzles, right? Like the song I think is okay. It's pretty solid throughout, but
mm-hmm.
then when it gets to that last like 20 seconds, it just fizzles out like a
Yep,
wet fart. And
yep,
it's just like, come on, guys. Like we learned this decades ago. You can have a mediocre movie, a mediocre album, a mediocre book, and if that ending is like top shelf ending, that takes
yep,
it from mediocre to legendary every single time.
yep. It's
Like,
kind of funny because I thought they were gonna do the thing. There's like a semi famous Cake song where they fade all the way out at the end of the track, and then they fade it.
speaking of wet farts,
Well, hey, I love Cake. But they like fade it all the way out, and then they fade it back up and kind of have like a bombastic ending, and then just end. And I was like, man, if there's gonna be another band that kind of does that, and then the song just kind of it like wanders off, and it's like, oh, that's the end of the album. Okay,
uh-huh.
bye.
I really didn't like that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and I think it's a real bummer because I think for me overall, I think this album is solid. If I was to rate it overall, it would probably be in like the 2.5 to 3 rating. I think there's a couple of tracks here that are just one track is really solid, a couple of tracks are just not that great.
Uh-huh.
But I think for me, this is it's kind of like a standard Poets of the Fall album, and I think that's not a bad thing. Just like we were talking about, like popcorn movies aren't always a bad thing. Just like a standard album from a band is good. Like when you get an okay pizza. Well, it wasn't bad. It was good, and now I'm full.
Uh-huh.
It was pizza. It was good.
Yep.
But I think there are less ways to fiddle with this album than the last one we listened to.
Uh-huh.
And I think their melding of their guitars and strings was really solid in this one. And I think that for me is something I'd like to. I don't want to see them kind of lean on, for the rest of their albums, but something I would like
Yeah.
to see come back at the very least for like the closing track on each album. It's like the strings are back, yeah, woo, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to know the spread, by the way?
Oh,
We're
sure.
talking football team terms here. The spread of rating numbers was 1.
Wow. Okay. So we're pretty close on this one.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
think it's been pretty close throughout. I think it was like -2, +2, and now it's 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think 1 positive on my front.
Right.
Or yes,
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. I can't remember. Whatever. It's
You
a
do the
1
math at
difference.
home.
Yes.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a pretty solid album. the interesting part for me is like debating and choosing what albums to cover next, because
Hmm.
like we've talked about the last one of these, so we basically got one more album, and then we've got the final album, which is Ghostlight from this year, is
Right.
what we're going to cover last. Because I haven't heard any of Ghostlighter, so I'm very interested to see how that sounds in comparison to everything else.
Hmm.
But it's like I really want to do Temple of Thought because I really do like that album. Jealous Gods, I have a fair bit of experience with, but like Clearview and Ultraviolet, I can't remember anything from them. So it's like,
Right.
we're gonna be jumping over like 3 albums here. We've got 4 to pick from, and there's one to do, and it's like, well, do we do Temple of Thought because it's got these songs on it that I know and that you might like,
Hmm.
or do we jump to one I'm not sure about so we can get to Ghostlight? Like
Right.
that's the tough part for me. It's like, because I feel like we have had the evolution of the band so far.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Like they have changed, they have evolved. Like you said, this is the first one, and I don't know if it's very appropriate that it's called Twilight Theatre when it becomes a much more theatrical
Hmm.
kind of production. Like I really do like that. So I think it's a solid album throughout. I'm just torn now on what to look at next.
We had originally talked about let's look at our folder structure here. Temple of Thought as our
Yeah,
next one. You know.
because that I feel like that's got some bangers on it.
Mm.
And I think there's a couple of songs on that that I don't like that you might actually end up really liking.
All right. There we go. That sounds interesting to me.
Uh-huh.
Any final thoughts here for Twilight Theater?
It's a good, solid album. Like you said, I feel like this is very middle of the road. I think
Hmm.
Carnival might be better overall. Like, if I'm thinking about it, Carnival is
Right.
probably the best album so far. But this has individual songs that does stuff. I almost swore. That does a lot of stuff that I enjoy, like the adding in of the violins and the pianos and everything else. Like
Right.
yes, more of that, please. Like, give me a lot more of that.
Yep.
Give me an album full of that, please.
That's right. Bring it all home.
Like, give me the Scorpions. Give me the
That's right.
greatest bangers, but with orchestra.
Hopefully soon. All right. Thank you very
Fingers
much,
crossed.
everyone, for listening. We'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.